So now I've talked about pretty much like, on the dynamics on the production side. And now I'm moving to the market side. Like now, you concentrate the lands, you create the farms, but still, like ultimately, if you want to generate profits, then if you want like realization of the value using Marxist terms, then you need to sell your products. Right? That's the only way for them to make profit. So I'm gonna examine like different layers, or like this is an overview of the agricultural product market in China. So pretty much I divide it into 3 layers. At the bottom layer is the everyday, like the fresh market that you go to, like farmers market, like really, at the county center, so everyday rural market. And then the middle layer is like regional, like wholesale, like supermarkets at like regional cities, right? It's like bigger than counties, but like still like not as big as cities like Beijing and Shanghai. And the top layer is like high-end retail. So this is really like a nationwide, like especially with online sales. So you can ship your products to like whoever, like to consumers throughout the entire country, right? So the bottom 2 layers of markets really have like lots of similarities. So in these 2 layers, it's really primarily about like having a competitive advantage in low price. And so like if your product is too expensive, then consumers can shift to a different one like really easily. And at the top layer, it's really like this is where like most of the profits come from. So this is where like the profit margin is high, and consumers really want high quality, or even like they treat agricultural products as like status goods, like using Bourdieu's term, right? Because they want this to have some cultural meaning. When they use them as gifts, they want this to be like good gifts, like not like shat, so they want them to have some kind of like cultural embodiment. Okay, yeah. So to talk about market, first I compared the peasant households, because this is where the agribusinesses compete directly with the peasant households. So in terms of production costs, so for peasant households who work on their own land, first they don't need to pay land rent, and second they use their own family labor, but like this, these are all costs for the agribusinesses. And like in terms of seed and fertilizer, like the per mu cost is like pretty much the same. And like in terms of like bagging, like other costs are pretty much the same. But the big differences really come from land rent and labor. Because peasant households don't need to pay those 2 costs, so their average production cost is much lower than that for the commercial farmers, for the agribusinesses. So this really gives peasant households like advantages. They have like strong price elasticity. They can sell at really low price, or they can sell at really high price. Even at very low prices, they can still make a profit. So this quote is from one of the peasant households. So this person was saying like every sale is making a profit. So long as we can sell them, right? Then that's money, that's like net income for us. But that is not the case for the commercial farmers. Yeah, so because of the institutional setup, how farmers access their land in China, they need to pay land rent, right? They need to hire the labor. Right. So farmers were really, in these 2 layers of market, they were really at this structural disadvantage. Right? They have higher production costs due to the institutional setup, so they don't really quite compete with peasants in a price war. Yeah. So like in the inland counties, this is one of their biggest difficulties is they don't have any local market. They don't have any like local population that can afford their products. So this quote says, in the county market, like no one will buy if your price is higher than like 3 yuan, which is like 30 cents or something. And local supermarkets demands are also like very limited, only like small amounts. And they want the cheap products, not the expensive products. So I only leave the worst fruits for the local market, and the local supermarkets also understand like why they do this. And in the coastal region, the agribusinesses, many of them just simply refuse to engage or to participate in those 2 lower layers of market because they're just not profitable, and because many of them brand their own products as like status goods, so they want like to maintain a high price level. If they're saying if we drop the price, then the price will never recover again, because people will say, this is of poor quality, this is of poor status, right? So no one will want them as presents anymore. So they intentionally keep their price high and don't engage in the 2 lower markets. But in the higher and the national retail market. So this is where most of the profits come from. But like here, like farmers in the coastal region, they really they have like lots of advantages. So like many years of like gradual expansion of the consumer base, closer to consumers, because most of the wealthy population in China are in coastal regions, right? And also like they enjoy government support in different areas. So they have been like, many of them have been like able to make profits in those, to establish their own niche market, to reap the profits. But this is not the case for farmers in the inland regions. They don't really have market access. They don't have government support either. So like farmers in the inland regions don't really have stable access to any of the layers of the agricultural product market nationwide. Right, so many of them are really struggling at the time that I did research. But in the case for the farmers in the coastal regions, they don't participate in the two lower layers, but they can make stable income from the top layer. So their situation is much better. And as a consequence, like many of the farms in the inland regions have been like heavily indebted and like losing money. Many of them even have already just exited agriculture altogether. And but in comparison, farmers in the coastal regions, in my sample, like many of them are much more successful. So in the inland regions, like agricultural, like agrarian accumulation, many of them failed, and farmers become indebted. And as a result, the farmers can't afford to pay land rent to peasants anymore. And this transmits into peasants losing their land-based income, and then translates into de facto dispossession. Even though the original policy design of the Chinese state was, its rental is not permanent change in ownership. One of the original intentions is to keep peasants' claim to land-based income, but this still happens at the end.